Mysterious illnesses, DNA discoveries, and stellar photos of the cosmos. These are some of the biggest science stories to happen this year. CTV science and technology specialist Dan Riskin is unveiling his picks for top science stories of 2019. Good to have you here.
Great to be here.
Last week we had a great time with the dogs. Today
Yes.
we were talking about the year that was in science. First one, this DNA discovery that Jack the Ripper might possibly have finally been identified.
Yes. So, DNA technology wasn't around back in the day. I mean, it was the 1800s. Jack the Ripper was this serial killer who killed, I think it was 5 women in 3 months. And everybody was trying to figure out who it was, and there were suspects, but it was never quite nailed down, and people have been trying to solve it ever since. But there are some DNA samples on a shawl that one of the victims had, Catherine Eddowes. And that shawl, weirdly, has been passed down through generations uncleaned. Here's the shawl that Catherine Eddowes was killed with. I don't know why people keep souvenirs like that, but I'm glad they do because they got some DNA off of it, and they tested the DNA from the shawl against descendants of the families of some of the people that were suspected, and they got a match.
Wow.
And so the match is Aaron Kosminski. And he was one of the people suspected of doing this back in the day. But now with 2019, we have an answer to who it is that Jack the Ripper was. So people thought it was like a royal member, a royal family
Something like
person
the Queen's great-grandson or something like that.
Yeah, that doesn't bear out. Unfortunately, that's a way better story. But they've solved the crime. It's just too late to punish anyone for it.
Fascinating. All right, so this was a great story. We all watched this. David St. Jacques coming back home from space.
Yeah, so David St. Jacques, just an amazing Canadian, went to space for longer than any Canadian has ever spent up there, 6 months. And it was great because it's cool to see Canadians on the International Space Station at this time because we're nearing the end of the ISS's role up there. I mean, it's not going to keep going forever. I don't know how many more Canadians are going to go up there, but this was an important one. And David St. Jacques was studying his own body as a medical doctor, as an astronaut, to see how it degraded over those 6 months. Because the next question is, how do Canadians and other humans make it to Mars? And that trip requires even more time in space than David St. Jacques spent. And if a guy in that good a shape fell apart to the extent that he did in 6 months, as he measured, it says a lot about what we're really trying to accomplish to get to Mars. It's much harder than I think people realize, and we know that because of the hard work David St. Jacques did.
And I love the Canadian connection to that story. All right, this is one that we're going to continue to follow, but the mysterious vaping illness.
Yes, so vaping really became something that everybody was talking about in 2019. There was a mysterious illness, 2,000 people got sick, more than 40 passed away because of a weird lung illness. The CDC in the States went into overdrive to figure out what was causing these problems. And it seems like some of the vape products, especially the ones that you buy on the street, are cut with vitamin E oil. And vitamin E oil is totally safe to eat. And so I think the assumption was, well, we could, save a little money by not using just the oils of nicotine or cannabis or whatever and mix it with a little vitamin E oil. But it seems like some people react very poorly to that and so that seems to be the culprit. So that's one of the things people are talking about with vapes. And then the other side of it is just how addictive those levels of nicotine are, because something like Juul gives you more than, 4 packs of cigarettes worth of nicotine. And that is just not sustainable. So kids, they used to start on cigarettes. Now they're starting on these vape products that may be even more addictive.
It is a fascinating story. We're going to continue to follow that one, too. Climate change. Climate change isn't a new discovery, but It did make a lot of news in science this year.
Yeah, this was the year where, Australia's on fire, Antarctica's breaking apart. You see ice floating out. Greta was the person of the year. People are talking about it now. And so we're seeing climate change now. It's no longer this future problem. It's something we're starting to deal with right now. I think that that's totally true for 2019. But I also saw a lot of people really taking action. You saw climate marches. Again, Greta being named the person of the year.
Climate strikes.
Climate strikes, absolutely. And, thinking back to the Canadian election that happened this year, I think the fact that the Conservatives did not have a credible plan to deal with climate change was one of the things that really hurt them. So I think that now society is changing in a way that it's not acceptable to bury our heads in the sand anymore.
In our last 30 seconds, this was fascinating, an actual picture of a black hole.
Yes, so black holes have been inferred since Einstein, but to see one really drives it home. I think, it's one thing to measure the movement rates of different things in the cosmos. It's another thing to get a picture that you can look at. And looking in the middle of that and seeing nothing, that's because no light can escape from that middle. That's where the black hole is.
What excites you about this as a scientist? Because as a layperson, I think it looks like a maple glazed donut.
You know what? As a scientist, I love maple glazed donuts. And so that's one thing to love about it. But the other thing to love about it is that you see a dark spot in the middle just like you're supposed to. It's exactly the way it's supposed to look. And it's nice when a picture lines up with exactly what you'd expect. It shows the science might be right.
A theory that is decades old, proven with a photo. Dan, thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.